Welcome back to our class shooter game tutorial. This is tutorial number 7. This tutorial will get our boss moving and hopefully we'll get our boss shooting back at our hero. There's about 2 or 3 tutorials left. This one will cover those topics. The next one will cover lives and timers and those sorts of things. So first off, a little housekeeping. We don't need to see this speed anymore. So I'm going to come over here to variables and just kind of turn it off. Hits we'll leave up, and eventually we'll turn the hits off because we won't need to see it as the game plays. So currently we have a boss sprite. It shows up right now after we've got 10 hits. We'll adjust that later out. It's just for testing right now, and as a developer you get to throw those things in for when you test. And what we're going to do next is position our boss and get our boss to move. Currently our boss just shows up, and we're going to want our boss to show up at the top of the screen, but we're also going to want our boss to show up at a random part at the top of the screen. So we're going to come here and how to get the boss to show up at a random spot. So when I receive show boss, we're going to want that boss to show. We've already set its size, and we're going to get it to show up at the top of the screen just like we get anything else to show up at the top of the screen. We're going to grab a go to XY, and with that go to XY we're going to bring in a mathematical pick random. It's going to be a random X somewhere along the X, and we'll shoot them up near the top of the screen. Now it's going to be very important when we put our boss at the top of the screen. By the way, on the X, pick random between -40 and 240, will be somewhere across the top of the screen. That I'm going to manually place him to start. Because what I want him is I want him close to the top of the screen, but I do not want him touching the top of the screen. If he touches the top of the screen, it's going to mess us up. And you can find out when you drag your boss and drop it near the top. It'll tell you down here what the Y value is. And mine at Y140 is not touching the top of the screen. Yours will be a little different. So I'm going to always position it to go to Y140 when it starts. If it touches the screen, it's going to bounce around all over the place. And you're going to have to fix that by resetting it to this stuff here. There's a couple of other things we're going to need to change when it comes to this. Let's have a look here. I wonder if there's any other properties. I'm looking for a specific property that used to show up here in the old version, and it doesn't look like it's showing up in this version. So I'm just going to take a quick break and see if I can find it. I finally found what I'm looking for. They moved the code that used to be over here. So what we want to make sure before we run this guy back and forth, even though we have this information in here, is we want to bring this set rotation style. We want to bring it just above the forever loop. Whoa, what happened there? Something weird happened there. It duplicated my code. Okay, I'll get rid of the duplicate part. So the set rotation style, we want to pull that down to do not rotate. If your object rotates, it could end up with some funny bounces. So keep in mind, off the top, set rotation style to don't rotate, forever, move 10 steps. So if we run that, our boss should bounce back and forth like this. If it bounces all over the screen, that means you have it too high, and I'll show you what that looks like, and I'll show you how we fix that. So say I started him at 170. If I start him at 170, he's touching the top of the screen, which causes him to bounce on the edge, and we don't want him to bounce off the top edge to do that. What we want him to do is just go back and forth across the top for now. Oops, I have to now, because I did that, reset his direction to 90 as well. So reset the direction to 90. There we go, back and forth. That's what we're looking for with the boss. Now that the boss moves back and forth like that, what we're going to get the boss to start doing is we're going to get the boss to start shooting down at our hero. And in order to get the boss to start shooting down at our hero, we need to pick something that the boss is going to shoot. So go into the library, find something that the boss is going to shoot. Okay, once you've got something to use as a boss shot, I'm going to grab something here, my boss shot, which is going to be right here. All right, there's my boss shot. This is going to work good for me. My boss shot is huge right now. We're going to end up shrinking this, and then we're going to end up getting it to follow the boss, very much like what we did when it came to the hero. So to get my boss shot doing what I want it to do, is we want our boss shot to show up pretty much the same time as, well, similar to the way we have our shots show up when we're shooting them with our hero. So at the very beginning of the game, we want these things to be invisible. We also got to change the size. So let's do the first thing by changing the size. Everybody's size will be a little bit different. Mine's going to be about 10% actual size. He's going to be really quite small. You can see it right here. The size of my shot is going to be really quite small. Any bigger is going to be a little more difficult for this game, so I'm going to keep it nice and small. He is plankton, after all. And what we're going to do for these particular things is we're going to have them move down towards the bottom of the screen, just like we do with everything else. So we're going to come to events. It's going to be when I receive show boss, or actually, let's not use that. Let's when I receive start. The first thing we want these things to do is hide. So we'll hide them initially. So when I receive start, hide, and make sure that its size is set appropriately, just like that. Now, when it receives show boss, what we're going to do is we're going to have it create a clone of myself, just like when we were doing stuff for the hero. So now, when I receive show boss, we'll do a forever. Create clone of myself. And this is not going to work perfectly the first time. We know it's not going to work perfectly the first time. And then we need to tell it what to do when it starts as a clone. So when I start as a clone, we're going to have it show. So basically we're going to have the boss start shooting at you immediately. And then we're going to have it point in direction of 180 degrees to move it down the screen. Where's my point in direction here? We're going to do a point in direction 180 degrees. Oops. It's going to see if that turns my plankton there. It turns him nicely, so he's pointed it at 180 degrees. That's nice. If you do not want objects to turn, I forgot to mention this earlier because my objects don't. If you do not want your objects to turn, you can set every time, set rotation style to do not rotate. All right. So point in direction 180, that'll move him towards the bottom of the screen, or point him at least towards the bottom of the screen. And then in order to get him to follow the boss along, we're going to use something a little bit simpler than we did with the hero. We're going to use a go to, I'm going to pull down here, go to the boss. So every time he shows up, he's going to show up in the boss. And this one here is going to come out of my boss's mouth. So it's almost going to look like SpongeBob is spitting or vomiting plankton out of his mouth. It's kind of a weird effect when it comes to this game, but it suits the game really, really well. And then we want the boss to move toward your boss shot to move towards the bottom of the screen. So for that, it's no different than what we've done in previous times. We're going to bring in the repeat until. We're going to bring in the less than sign. On the numeric side, it'll be less than -175. And if your things don't disappear -175, change the number. Make it like -170, -165. Those will end up working for you. And then we need to go to the motion and bring in the Y position. So it's going to repeat until the Y position is less than -175. That's exactly the same as we did for our enemies. It's no different. And then we'll bring in a quick move 10 steps. That's how fast they will move for us. We'll drop that right in there. And then when it's done that, repeat until it's greater than that, we'll bring in a really quick delete this clone. Now, this is not going to work perfect. It's going to be absolutely crazy when it gets started. So we need to get to that boss. We need to get to 10 points. And then what our boss is going to do is he's going to lay out a whole bunch of planktons. Now, this should look familiar. This is exactly the way our shots were originally working in the game, right? We got these shots coming out, and eventually there's going to be so many shots, it's going to fill up the plankton buffer, and we're not going to get it. Actually, it won't, because we've already got them disappearing at the bottom of the screen. So we've got this. Now this is not useful to us. This means we die pretty much every time. So let's fix that. Now we're going to go back to the boss shot, and how are we going to fix that? Well, what we're going to do is we're going to delay the shots coming out of the boss. And we're going to do that over here when it's creating a clone of itself. What we're actually going to do is we're going to make it a random wait so that the boss may shoot really quickly sometimes and a little more slowly other times. It just changes the game up, makes the game less easy to predict. So we'll go to the operators. Actually, not the operators. We'll go to the control. We'll bring in a wait block, and we'll throw in a wait block right in above here. And then we'll go to the mathematical operators. We'll bring in a pick random. And that pick random, we'll put it in 0.25 seconds to 1.5 seconds. So every 0.25 to 1.5 seconds, this guy is going to shoot at you. So you'll see when we get there now that it'll look a fair bit different. Instead of him shooting like crazy all the time, we will get this random shot. So there we are. Some of them will come a little quicker, some of them will come a little later. So now you have to dodge the bad guys. Well, dodging the bad guys is great, and our boss is a boss, and we know he's a boss because he's defending himself. If he wasn't defending himself, you couldn't really call him a boss in a video game. But now what we need to do is worry about hitting the boss. Hitting the boss X number of times, and once we hit the boss X number of times, that boss should, of course, disappear on us. So what we need to do is we need to keep track of how many hits we get on that boss. And bosses, of course, don't go away with a single hit. Bosses take number of hits to go away. So when we go to the boss and the boss code, we're going to add some stuff to this. Now, we could use a whole new variable for counting how many hits there are on the boss, but we're not going to. What we're going to do is we're going to use the same hits variable. We're going to recycle it. We're just going to refresh it once we get here. So when the boss receives the show boss, the first thing we're going to do actually is we're going to take this variable and we're going to set hits to 0 again. So when the boss shows, hits going to go back down to 0, and then we're going to be able to try hitting the boss. And we're going to put lives on the boss like 29 by the time we're done. But again, we're going to set it lower for testing so that the boss is going to be at about 9. We're going to hit him 10 times and then see what happens. So how are we going to work this out? Well, we got this forever move 10 steps. We're going to change that a bit later too. And an if on edge bounce. I'm going to bring a nice if statement in here and put it right below the if on edge bounce. So if, let's bring in some mathematical greater than. Later we'll set that to greater than 39, so we'll need 40 hits on the boss. Right now we'll just set that to 9 again while we're working on it. So if hits, oops, bring over here, if hits is greater than 9, what do we want to happen? Well, we want this guy to fade out like everything else does. So we'll bring in a repeat 10 times right in here. We'll go to the looks. We'll change the pixelate effect by 25. Just like that. And then once that's done, this boss is going to need to, after we get him all pixelated and done, we're going to need that boss to hide. So this is how we're going to start this, and then let's give this a try. Let's see what happens when we start hitting this guy. Oh, we're going to need to start the game again. Here we go. Shoot these guys through 10. And once we get the boss, ooh, what happened there? How come my boss hid so quickly? I've made a code mistake. So let's go back and see where I've made a code mistake. If hits greater than 9, then repeat 10. What have I done or not done? I'm going to figure that out. What I figured out was that was just a little glitch in the game because I didn't start it right from the beginning. So we've got this, we can shoot at our boss, but still our boss will not die because we have not set it up that way. We don't have any hits on our boss yet, and I know we still have planktons coming down because we haven't worked out that to stop those yet, but we will. I just need to get myself, need to totally stop everything. totally reset everything. Here we go. Let's reset everything and see what we get. Okay, so now he's shooting, and we can shoot, and he's moving, but we can't hit him yet because we haven't coded a hit on him yet. We've got it set up where if he gets 10 hits, he's going to pixelate and disappear, but we haven't set ourselves up to hit him yet. So we're going to set up the hits on the boss on the hero shot. So let's do that. So let's come to the hero shot. We've got this if touching enemy. We're going to bring in another if here. We're going to bring that if right down in here. So it's got to go inside the repeat until. And make sure the delete this clone is on the very bottom. We're going to bring in an if touching. I'm going to pull down here, boss. So if the hero shot is touching the boss, what do we want it to do? Well, we want it to grab a variable. We want it to change the hits by 1. We want to wait 0.1 seconds like we did with the hits on the enemies. And then we're going to want to put a delete this clone right under the 0.1 seconds. So if you make your code look like that, now when we hit the boss, we should get some hits. When we get to 10, he should disappear. Now we have an issue with plankton still coming down. That's fine. We're going to stop that. And that's a really easy fix because we have all these planktons coming down. And so when we have this boss hide right here, what is a easy thing we can do in order to make sure that planktons don't come down is we can either broadcast out like a you win and then stop the boss shots coming down the screen. Or what we can do is, actually I think that's what we're going to end up doing in order to stop those. As soon as that's done, we will have it broadcast out something else which will stop those from coming down the screen. But for right now, that pretty much is going to work. And actually, let's just put that on the boss shot right now. Or it's a combination of the boss and the boss shot. So after the hide, we are going to go to events. We're going to broadcast a new broadcast. Oh, how about you beat the boss, you win. So let's make a new message called you win. And we're going to bring up a couple of things with the you win. We're going to go to the boss shot. And with the boss shot, we'll have a when I receive, let's see. When I receive you win, we'll do a quick, on the boss shot, we'll do a quick hide. We'll also do a stop all scripts on this sprite or other scripts on this sprite. And then we will also do a delete this clone on there. So let's try that now. So let's go play. Let's get back to the boss. And we get back to the boss. He's going to start shooting at me. And there we go. Now the planktons disappear on us. So we're just another step closer. The next thing we need to have happen is what happens when the boss shot hits the hero. And having the boss shot hit the hero will also kind of end the game in a loss. So to do that, we are going to attach that to the boss shot. So we're in the boss shot. We've got this repeat until. It's move 10 steps. We're going to bring in an if right below that. We're going to bring in from the sensing, we'll bring in the touching hero. We will bring in that standard wait 0.1 seconds, which is the delay on our collision detections. And then we will do a broadcast. of game over. I think that works. Let's try that out. So this time, what we have to do is we actually have to get hit by the planktons. So we'll play up to the boss, get hit by a plankton on purpose. All right, and we got a game over. Now, we haven't had him explode or disappear yet. We could do that on the hero if we wanted to. Right now we've got it if touching enemy. We could add an if touching plankton. It would do the same thing. Or if touching my boss shop. We're actually going to change the game up a bit. But one thing we haven't done is we haven't reset the game after he broadcasts a you win. So let's go to the boss, and you see he broadcasts a you win. And when we win, what doesn't happen is we don't get, so I'll show you what I mean. So if I shoot 10 of these guys, and then I shoot my boss 10 times, and hopefully not get by a plankton before that happens. Okay, the game doesn't stop, nothing happens there. So what we want to do with that you win is we'll eventually bring up a you win sprite, and we will reset the play button and all of those kinds of things. We'll eventually set a high score and all of those in another tutorial. So let's just do that really quick, and then we'll end this tutorial and we'll pick it up on the next one. So all I'm going to do here is make a new sprite, really simple, text sprite, you win, exclamation point, put it in the center. Then we will center it as we go. Make the sprite, give it a name, you win, and then we'll come and code this sprite. The sprite, of course, whenever the game starts, let's have a look here. When I receive start, we'll position this at about the same position as the game over screen, which is 0 and 80. And then we'll have it hide. And then when I receive you win, we will have it show. That's nice. But then we'll also come to the play button. And the play button will also get a when I receive you win. We'll also get a show. So that win or lose, that button will show up. So now when we hit that button, and then hopefully we can beat the boss. Why did my boss not show up? We have an issue, probably because I didn't stop the whole game to start. If you ever end up with something weird, just go up and hit the stop sign and see if that fixes the issue. Quite often, if a game's not reacting right, that's because I made some major code change and didn't stop the game, so it's trying to interpret two games at the same time. There we go. That's what we wanted. So we'll stop this tutorial right here. Next day, we'll work on lives and speeding up the boss and a few other things. Getting close to the end, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for hanging in there.